All right, so given that we made it through roll and you're all in the room that you're supposed to be in, even though it's unmarked without numbers on the door, such as it is, you are all here for Digital Tools for Designers, which is Architecture 135. There are 2 sections of this semester, which is rare. Good and bad news, I'm teaching both sections, so it's kind of all one big section. So on a lot of things, including the syllabus, both course section numbers are listed. So you guys are here in the first one, which is 1749. It doesn't really make any difference. There'll be a few changes in terms of when yours are due versus when the evening section today is due. Essentially, yours will be due slightly earlier than theirs, but it's virtually the same thing. We're going to try to track the 2 courses at the same time, so everybody's kind of doing the same thing at once. So this is the spring of 2016. Shockingly, we made it. And I am Grant Adams. I'm an associate professor of architecture here. I've been teaching this particular class since 2007. So I've been in this slot for a long time. This was actually the class that I was recruited to teach out of Berkeley. My degrees are both from Berkeley. I have an undergraduate degree, which is a Bachelor of Arts in Architecture from UC Berkeley, followed up with a Master of Architecture degree from Berkeley as well. So I spent a lot of time there. It's kind of rare to do them back to back, but that's my background. When I was a grad student, I was a grad student instructor at Berkeley the whole time I was there for 3 of the 4 semesters. Found I really, really liked teaching, and so therefore found a job teaching. This is not what I do full-time. I'm here because it's associate professor. That translates into the part that matters for you, as I am here 2 days a week. So Monday and Wednesday, I'm here all day, all the time. I get here at like 6 in the morning, and I'm going to leave at like 10 at night. So you kind of, if you need me, come see me on Monday or Wednesday. If you need me on one of those other days, I won't be here. I have my own company. I do construction work and real estate investment work, which is kind of separate and apart from this. I have a big project right now in the city of Lafayette that should break ground next fall. So there's a lot of stuff going on outside of what I do teaching here, but I do really like to teach, and I really, really like these classes. So my email is gadams@dvc.edu. It's also grant@digitaltoolsforarchitects.com. If you email either one of those, they'll go to the same place, so it makes no difference which email you use. If you send an email to the DVC email, chances are you'll get a reply from the Digital Tools for Architects. It really doesn't make any difference. Okay. I shockingly also give you my phone number. So if you're running late or you're not going to be here, please call or text me or send me an email. Well, if you call me, I probably won't answer, but but you can text me. That'll work. But also, when you text me, tell me who you are, because when I get some random number, I can tell that it is a student telling me they're not going to be here, but I don't necessarily know who you are or what your phone number is. But I ask that you text me ahead of time just so that I know whether I should be waiting to start the lecture or should I go ahead because you're not actually going to be here. Okay? So just, it's a courtesy thing. My office hours are officially Monday and Wednesday, 2 to 3 p.m. And I'll do another one between 5:30 and 6 for the night class for people getting at the night class. The truth is that if you need to talk to me, as long as it's a Monday or Wednesday, pretty much I'll be here and you can find me. I'll either be in this room a lot of the time, or my office is in ET 116F, which is straight across the hallway, through those double doors, and straight to the back where the T-squares hang on the wall. That's my office. So I'll either be here or there, or avoiding you altogether so that I don't have to talk to you. I'm kidding, right? And we're apparently going to sleep. All right. I think that covered that. So the course website, some of you have been here before. Some of you are already registered. I don't see a lot of familiar faces, so this will be new for many of you. There is a course website for this class. It's the same as for the 136 class, which I also teach, which many of you will end up taking as well. It's digitaltoolsfordesigners.com or digitaltoolsforarchitects.com. The primary domain is architects, but you'll get there either way. They both exist. You're going to visit this website to view all of your exercises and assignments, important course information, the course calendar, when stuff is due. You're going to post all of your exercises and your assignments to this course website. I also have a ton of tutorials, videos, lecture recordings. Everything is up there for you to have. and to work on. And you will also comment on your fellow students' work, which I will elaborate more on later. The website is really designed to be a great tool. I'd like to point out that this is distinctly not the Desire to Learn or D2L websites that you're familiar with other classes. This is completely independent of any of that. Part of that is because this is a much more graphic-intensive class, and I think we need more than what the D2L website will offer. So we have something a little bit outside of that. This is what it looks like. I'll take you a tour on it a little bit later, and I'll show you where all of the stuff is, but at least you can see what it looks like. So there will be a course calendar on the website. It needs to be updated. I need to have the actual assignments in. I don't have that done quite yet, but it will be by next class. I'll teach you how to subscribe to the calendar, so it'll show up on your own calendar, on your phone, or whatever. So you'll always have up-to-date information about when stuff is due, what I'm going to lecture on, what exercises there are, etc. Your class, you're all here, shockingly. It's 8 to 8:50 is primarily the lecture time for this class, and 9 to 10:50 is the lab portion for this class. It may not be exactly that kind of a split. That's what the registrar says it is. It's an hour of lecture and 2 hours of lab. The truth is that some days it'll take me more than an hour to explain what I'm trying to talk about. Some days it'll take me less than an hour and you'll have more lab time. I try to balance how much I talk versus how much you have to do, such that when you're working, you can generally get what you need to get done during that time frame. Okay, so if I lecture for a half hour, you have a little bit more time. Maybe you have a little bit more to do during the lab. If I lecture for an hour and a half, you might have a little bit less to do during the lab. So it's all designed for you to be finished at 10:50. Okay, like I said, my office hours are there. So what are we going to talk about in this class? What are you going to learn? We're going to learn primarily Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator. So those are the three big Adobe products. Photoshop is obviously photography driven. So we'll talk about digital photography. We'll talk about taking pictures. We'll talk about post-processing pictures. We'll talk about collaging pictures. We'll cut things out, paste them together, that sort of thing. Illustrator is a graphic design program meant for drawing or illustrating. We will talk a lot about that, but more specifically how you can use that in more of an architectural context. So we'll talk about diagramming on top of plans and sections. We'll talk about line weights. We'll talk about making things look good, collaging, that sort of thing. We will, at much arguing on my part, we will cover some AutoCAD, which I'm very happy about. For a long time, I had to teach Vectorworks, and that's not my favorite. So we're going to cover AutoCAD, which is much better. So we'll spend not an intensive amount of time on AutoCAD. We'll spend maybe 3 weeks or something, but I will get you the basic skills that you need for 121. How many people are taking 121 this semester? Okay, so a lot of you. So it's my goal to make sure you have skills for that class, right? When it comes around to doing your laser cutting of your museums at the end, I'll make sure you're ready, right? That's my job. So I'm getting a thumbs up from the laser tech, right? So we'll make sure you're ready for that. So we will cover AutoCAD, but I do want to make sure that you know how to make pretty AutoCAD stuff instead of ugly AutoCAD stuff. So we'll make sure that you make pretty stuff too, okay? We will cover SketchUp. How many people have used SketchUp before? It's amazing. When I used to ask that question, nobody would raise their hand. And now everybody raises their hand. So that's a good thing. But we will talk more about how do you make SketchUp look good than we will talk about technically how do you model in SketchUp, because most of you already are pretty comfortable modeling in SketchUp. But we will make it look much better than it currently does. And then we'll also talk about InDesign and a little bit of Acrobat, which has to do with PDFs. For graphic design layouts, we will end this class with a portfolio. So you'll be doing a lot of work graphically. We'll talk about laying out posters and that sort of thing as well. So there is a book for this class. I just updated it. It's version 4.0. This is not version 4.0, but it looks the same. If you've already bought this book in one of my other classes, you don't have to buy it again. Okay? It's the Digital Tools for Architects Handbook. It has all of the tutorials that I talk about, step-by-steps of everything that we do in class. I really recommend getting this so that you can sit down and as I'm going through, you can make notes, because maybe how I explained clipping mask was a lot clearer in lecture than it is in the book. You can make little notes in the margins. That seems to work really well for people. I used to make copies, but you can tell that the number of copies that this produced was not particularly well thought by the copy center. So we published it into a book, and it makes it a nice bound thing to move on. A lot of times people bring it with them when they move to Berkeley, etc. It's available from an online publisher, lulu.com. So if you go to lulu.com/spotlight/DTFA, you can order it. It will take probably 10 days to get here. Not a big deal. We're not covering anything so critical that you need it before that time frame. The other thing that I highly recommend is to do a Google search for coupon codes. If you can get a Lulu coupon code for free shipping or discount, I'll see if I can find one too, all the better. It's not me that gets the discount. We're going against the publisher, so by all means, get a discount. There is one other recommended textbook. I think it's available in the bookstore. If not, you can order it on Amazon. It's the Layout Workbook by Kristen Cullen. This is not something that you're going to use for the whole semester, but when we talk specifically about portfolios or graphic design, layout, posters, that sort of thing, this is kind of the indispensable Bible for how do you do this stuff. And one of the things that you'll notice in the world of architecture when you're taking classes is that we don't require too many really expensive textbooks, right? You take math and you have to buy the calculus textbook for like $150 or whatever. It's painful, right? In architecture, there's a few classes that maybe like the history class, you have to buy the history book, but there's not a lot of books. And a lot of times architecture professors will throw these kinds of books out because they're really good. You don't really need them for the class, but it's nice to have them, and you keep them on your shelf, and as you go forward, you kind of look at them. The other great thing about these books is they're full of pictures. Right? It's a lot better than reading some other English book or something, right? So you can flip through and look at the pictures, which is pretty good. So the all-important grading factor, right? And like I said, if you've been in my class before, this is if you were in 136 before, this is very, very similar. Grading's always the same. You have lab exercises, and I'll elaborate on all of these as we go forward. Lab exercises are worth 20%. They're kind of a pass, not pass sort of thing. I'll explain it more in a little bit. You have assignments throughout the semester. I believe we'll have 6 assignments over the course of this semester. I vary it up a little bit. I change it, so I can't commit to for sure it's going to be 6. It might be 7. It might be 5. We'll see. It's probably going to be 6. And that'll be worth 40% of your overall grade. You will have a final portfolio due at the end of the semester. That's worth 30% of your overall grade. So don't slack off on it. It's worth it to work on it. And your participation is worth 10% of your overall grade. I try really hard in this class to make it a very consistent, even workload. You guys, based on the number of hands, there's a lot of you in 121 this semester. You will find that the work spikes, right? You have a lot of work, and then, oh my God, I have so much work I can't even breathe, right? And then you go back to, I have a lot of work, right? You don't remember, I didn't say you have no work, right? There's always a lot of work, right? It's just, it spikes. So I try really hard in a class like this, which is a companion class to a 121 or a 120, to make the workload very even and very consistent, right? You always know there's kind of always an assignment that's out about 2 weeks, and it's just kind of a consistent work. There is also a ton of time in class during lab to work on your stuff. And some of you will move faster, some of you will move slower, but I try to make it really even, and that's certainly the idea. So let's talk specifically about each of these elements. So exercises, as I said, are worth 20% of your grade. The exercises are, for the most part, designed to be completed in class during the lab period. So you shouldn't have homework, so to speak, related to the lab exercises. Sometimes you won't finish. Post what you have. Get credit for it. Right? It doesn't matter whether you finish it or not. Right? If you don't finish it and leave, like an hour into class and you just blow out of here and you don't finish it, probably not a good thing. You probably won't get credit for it. But if you're here and you're working on it during the lab and you didn't quite finish something, no worries. Just post it as an incomplete sort of thing. You can always update it later, and chances are you'll get credit for it. Okay? Furthermore, this is not a right or a wrong thing. I'm not going to grade you down because you did a horrible job or something you tried really failed and didn't work out. Right? This is for you to try, right? Play around with things. If it doesn't work, no big deal, right? This is where you learn the skills that you'll apply later, right? So be willing to take risks and just go for it, right? That's part of it. It is definitely a pass, not pass sort of thing. You either do it and get 100%, or you don't do it and you get 0. It's real easy. So do it. right? One of the things that does happen with exercises, and I'll warn you this ahead of time, and you guys will probably not listen to me, and it'll happen to you anyway, is that people get behind on their exercises, and they don't post them, or they do the work and they don't post them, and then it gets toward like 3/4 of the way through the semester, and they're failing the class because they just haven't turned anything in, right? And then they have to go back and redo and repost, and which ones didn't I do and which ones didn't I do. Just always make a post at the end of class, and you won't have to worry about it, right? It's really easy. Just make your posts, okay? So assignments are generally larger. They require some work outside of class. Depending on how fast you work in class, you might have time to work on them. Some days I build in a little bit of extra time to work on them. So it varies a little bit, but you might have to work outside of class. The software that you use in this class is available in this lab. It's available in the lab straight across the hallway through the glass in that little glass area over there. Right? It's also available in ET 124, which is another lab kind of in this back corner of the courtyard. Any of those labs have the software, so you can work in any of those labs. A lot of the software is available for you to purchase or is available for free at home. Depending on which route you decide to go, be aware that the current version of the Adobe Suite, the CC, the Creative Cloud, is not always perfectly backward compatible to the CS6 versions that we have on these computers. So there's some saving issues. There is a way to go back in your work, and I can talk about how to do it if you're working on your own computer. So just be aware that it's there. The assignments are collectively worth 40% of your overall grade. That translates to about 6% per assignment. And it's going to fluctuate based on whether I have 6 assignments, 7 or 8 assignments, depending on how it kind of plays out. You may elect, and I always debate should I cut this out, but people seem to like it. You may elect to do a regrade for each assignment, but you can only do one for each assignment. And it's really hard to explain that correctly. Okay? But if you did assignment 101, okay, which is your best photograph, you're going to go out and take a picture, and you're going to post-process it, and you're going to make it look as good as you can, good composition, all that sort of thing. You turn it in, and it really wasn't very good, right? Maybe you get, let's say you got an 80% on it, and you're like, I didn't want to get a B, I really wanted to get an A, right? Sometime before the end of the semester, so sometime before May 25th or 27th or something like that, right, you can resubmit assignment 101, okay? You do it fresh. I will then, at the very end of the semester, look at it as if I never looked at your first one. So it's not graded based on improvement. It's just a brand new, fresh start. Right? That being said, your grade can go up or it can go down, depending on how you do. Right? So it's just like a clean slate as if the first one didn't happen. Okay? And so I will let you do that for each assignment. Right? So you can do one for assignment 101. You can do one for assignment 102. Right? Chances are you're only going to do it for 1 or 2 of them. That's just the way it kind of works out. If you feel like you're going to redo it, better to redo it earlier rather than later, because you'll run out of time at the end of the semester. That's the way it always happens. Okay? So the regrades also occur at the very end of the semester. Sorry, it keeps going to sleep here. I'm going to have to sort that out. Maybe it's trying to tell me I'd rather be there right now. All right, where am I? There we go. Okay? Good. So, final portfolio. The final project in this class is a portfolio of your work. You will be required to include all of the work from this class, or excuse me, all of the assignments from this class. If you're doing work outside of this class, or you've already done work outside of this class, you can, of course, include any of that work as well. I will give you very specific instructions for how we're going to go about doing this, and what kinds of things are requirements, etc. It's worth 30% of your grade, which means it can really swing your grade at the end of the semester, right? You can either really get an A, or you can drop from an A to a B. Like there's enough flexibility in there where this matters. So waiting until the end is not the right strategy. It's something we'll start about halfway through the semester, and we'll keep pushing through with it. It is a project for you to do on your own to showcase what you've learned in this class. So it's not something we're going to spend a huge amount of time doing in class, though, of course, I will go through and give corrections. And if you print it and want to see me during office hours, of course, we'll walk through it, etc. But it is the final. Okay? So course participation. This is something that's very, very important and is a culture that I try very hard to create in this class. After each or almost every exercise that you do and every assignment that you do and turn in, you will be required to make 3 comments on your fellow students' work. Okay? I'm not going to go through and check whether you're making comments on this section's work versus the night section's work. It doesn't matter. It's just going to be that assignment for this semester. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'll show you guys next class how you go through and how you make the comments, so it will be very obvious. What you'll want to do is you'll want to get in the habit of when you get in here before I start lecturing, that's when you do comments. And if you do that every day and you just stay current with it, it won't be a problem at the end. Right? I will tell you now that if you don't do comments and you wait until, I'll just do some comments later when I catch up, you will spend hours and hours doing comments. It's much easier to do it as you go. Okay, and I'll talk exactly how it works and how that helps. The other thing that I will say is that I don't want comments like, oh, your work is so pretty, right? That doesn't help, right? Doesn't help anybody get better, right? These comments are designed to be constructive. They're designed to point out maybe the work is really pretty, right? Maybe you like it, but explain why, right? Is the combination of colors enhancing the overall composition of the image or something? Right? You want to be able to articulate why is something nice? Why is something pretty? Right? Maybe you want to articulate why something didn't work, and that's okay too. Okay? It's important for you to learn how to discuss what you feel about a particular piece of work. So this will help you in the long run just in how you talk about architecture and design. So materials for the class, pretty minimal. You're going to need a USB flash drive. How many people have taken a class at DVC before? Right? Some of you haven't, so I'm going to warn you right now. These computers are frozen, so if you, let's say the power goes out, right, and you save something on the desktop, it will be gone. Anytime these computers restart, they wipe, right? And that's a security thing, so you can't really like install viruses and attack the network or whatever. So you want to work off of a flash drive or a hard drive or something in that vein. I've had students work off hard drives before. That's fine. If you want to work off a flash drive, that's fine too. You will need something like that to work on. Some people use like Google Drive and upload their stuff. Some people use Dropbox. I will talk about backing up your stuff to Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that. I won't recommend that as the primary source of your files. I would recommend that you keep it on a local copy that comes with you. Okay? I would also like to tell you that if you come to me halfway through the semester and you tell me that your flash drive was in your pocket and it went through the wash and it's ruined, right, I'm going to tell you it's not my problem. Okay? If you sit down in the chair and snap your flash drive off in the computer, I'm going to tell you it's not my problem. Right? If you your flash drive fell out of your pocket and got run over by a car, I will tell you, not my problem, right? Because it's your job to safeguard your work, which means you have to back it up. Now, I'm not going to leave you high and dry and not talk about how to back it up or where to back it up or that whole realm. So we will spend a whole lecture talking about that. So you don't have to worry or stress out about it. I just like to lay that out in the beginning so that you know your flash drive is your responsibility, right? Oh, the other thing that happens all the time is people leave them behind, right? They walk away. One of the things I recommend for people if you struggle with leaving your flash drive behind is attach it to your keys. It'll be really hard to leave without your keys, right? So sometimes that's a good strategy. If you leave it behind, most people are good Samaritans, and they bring it up here, and I put it right here under the monitor, right? So if you lost it or left it behind, there's a good chance it'll be sitting up here at the instructor station. If not, sometimes they'll turn it in to the computer tech that works across the way, Chuck. You can look on his shelf. He has a shelf of flash drives that people have never claimed, right? Sometimes, in rare circumstances, they turn it into like police services or something. But it's kind of one of those things, if it's not in one of these two places, chances are it evaporated, right? So be aware, keep track of it, make sure you don't lose it. The other thing that can be helpful for the class is a digital camera. It's not required for the class. Chances are almost all of you have smartphones, cell phones, right? It used to be that cell phone cameras were so horrible that you couldn't actually do anything with them. Now they're pretty darn good, so if you want to use that, that's fine as well. I'm really struggling with this screensaver. I'm going to have to figure that out. Okay, so let's see here. I would recommend, I mean, if you're buying a brand new flash drive, go ahead and buy like a 32 gig or a 64 gig flash drive. They're getting so cheap that it really doesn't matter. I mean, I think you can get a 32 gig for like $10. Order it on Amazon or buy it in the bookstore, or buy it at Staples or Costco or whatever. But go ahead and get a large one. You will start to fill it up. In this class, you probably won't do more than 4 to 6 gigs worth of work. If you are in my 136 class, you'll probably do 32 gigs worth of work. So be aware that as you go forward, you need more and more space. OK, so general guidelines. If you miss 2 weeks of class or more, I may withdraw you from the class. Right? That's at my discretion. If you're going to be gone, please text me ahead of time, just so that I'm not waiting on you to show up. It's important for you to be responsible and that sort of thing. If you haven't done 3 assignments, you may be dropped, right? Or you may receive an F, right? And so I like to take a little bit of time to explain my philosophy when it comes to attendance. Some instructors here at DVC, some instructors when you move on, are very meticulous about role and who's here and who's not, and they have certain systems in place where like you have to turn something in at the very end of class, and you have to ask if you need to go use the bathroom, and I mean it's like a really tight ship. Okay, I believe very differently than that. This is a college class. You're all grown up, right? If this is your first college class ever, congratulations, right? Welcome. But this is a college class. There's nobody here to hold your hand. There's nobody here to babysit you. You're in charge of yourself, right? That's what college is, and you have to figure it out. So if you don't show up, you accept the consequences, right? If you leave early, you accept the consequences, right? I don't like to pull people out of the class. I mean, I will, if you're really not showing up and you've just completely bailed, I'll pull you out, right? But I would ask, instead of relying on me to do it, that you do it yourself, okay? And the reason I spend so much time talking about this is probably 5 of you will vanish on me by the end of the semester. Right? And right now, if I asked each one of you individually, you'd say, no, I'm going to be here the whole time. Right? But chances are 5 of you will just like evaporate. And that happens. So withdraw yourself from the class. Don't rely on me. Right? The other thing is if you want to stay in, right, and you think you can do it all, that's fine. You just accept the consequences of you might fail or you might get a D. It is what it is. Right? No worries. Chances are you'll all do great. You'll probably all get A's. Right? So I'm not here to babysit you. Be responsible, good adult college students. Fair enough? OK. So the assignment due dates will be announced in class. The assignments are due at the start of lecture. OK. So you need to have posted your assignment and or handed in a paper copy if I ask for it before I start talking on whatever day it is. OK. That means it has to be in. It has to be. Now, you'll notice that on the website there's timestamps. I can see everything. I know exactly when you posted what you posted, right? So it's really easy for me to go check. Okay? If you don't turn it in, right, it'll be subject to the late work policy, which I'll talk about later. It's much better to turn it in. Just turn it in. Okay? Exercises are due at the end of the lab period, right? Sometimes I'll let those. We'll have an exercise that'll go across 2 days where you'll work on the first half and you'll work on the second half. But generally speaking, it's always due at the end. However far you get, post something. Right? Just makes life easy if you always post something. The late work policy is basically for every class day it's late, you drop 10%. So let's say you did A quality work, you got a 95%, right? Or the work was worth a 95%, but you turned it in before class the day after it was due. Okay? You get an 85%. Right? 2 days late, it would be 75%. And these are class days. We only meet on Monday and Wednesday. Right? So if you didn't turn it in on Monday, you would have to turn it in before lecture starts on Wednesday for that first 10%. Then you would have to turn it in by the following Monday for the 20%. Right? We go all the way down to 50%. Right? At that point, if you turn it in, I will give you 50%. Right? So I don't keep the penalty going down further. Okay? So it's much better to turn it in than to not turn it in at all. All right. General guidelines for the class. I try very hard to be around for one-on-one support. Computer classes are very tricky. You're learning complex things. There's a lot of little snags that happen to different people. And I will try very, very hard to meet every single one of you and address all of your needs. Okay? It doesn't always happen that I can get to all of you in a timely manner. There are 32 potentially of you, and there's one of me, right? It may take me a while to move from one side to the other side and back again, okay? If that happens, lean over to your neighbor and say, hey, do you know how to do this, right? Because they might know how to do it, or they may have been successful and you were not, right? The other thing is Google is your best friend. If you're struggling, right, Google it. The other thing is the book, step by step, will walk you through everything that I talk about, right? So there's lots of resources for you to get unstuck, okay? I already told you to take notes in this, which is good. I also try very, very hard to record every lecture that I give. And so I'm recording right now, and I'll post it on the website. I post all the lectures to YouTube. You can follow my YouTube channel and see all of the lectures. Stuff happens. My microphone battery wears out, or my laptop crashes when I'm talking. So you can't rely on the fact that it'll be there, but there's a pretty good chance it'll be there. And so it's there for you after the fact. If you miss a class day, go back and watch the lecture so you're not behind, right? I try my best to post them as timely as I can. So like today's lecture, I'll try to have done by the end of today. So it may take me a day or two to get it up, but I try really hard to stay consistent. All of the previous semester's lectures are also there. So if you missed this lecture and I haven't posted it, go back and look at last semester's lecture. Though there are sometimes some changes in the order in which I give them, so you might have to look a little bit. So watching the recordings is not the same as being in class. It's not an online class. You don't just get to sit home and be in your jammies and watch me talk. It doesn't work that way. You have to actually show up here. You need that interaction. The truth is, in a computer class like this, you really do need some one-on-one help, and that'll be normal, and that's what I'm here for. All the work done in this class is done under a Creative Commons non-commercial share-alike license, which basically means we all share everything and life is good. Okay? If you have an issue with this for some reason, I had one student maybe 8 years ago who was really worried about licensing, and so therefore I have to put this in, right, for legal things. But really, it shouldn't be an issue to any one of you. But if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. Okay, so let's look at some student work to see the kinds of things you're going to be working on or creating in this semester, and then we'll get to the lab period. Okay, so we'll start with some photography, and I'm going to flip through these rather quickly, and we'll talk about different strategies and compositional techniques in photography, but this is all student work. We'll also talk a lot about post-processing and how do you enhance colors and how do you enhance composition, how do you crop after the fact, what do levels do, and those kinds of things. We'll talk about selectively making parts of an image black and white versus parts of it being in color, and those kinds of things as well. Then we'll get into advanced photo editing. This is where we take two objects that don't belong together and we put them together. And this, you learn a lot about how to mask objects, how to seamlessly put things together, how to pay attention to lighting conditions and shadows to make two pieces really seamlessly come together. And all of this is very valuable when we move forward into architecture and we're trying to collage and we're trying to match up shadows from, say, a SketchUp model to a background image and put those things together. Sometimes they just turn out really creepy. Such is life. I love that one. So then we'll talk about layouts and graphic designs. We'll do some lecture series posters. As you know, the end of the semester will be the portfolio. We'll spend some time talking specifics about portfolio. But we'll talk about how do you lay out text? How do you deal with typography? What font do you choose for a particular project? And how does that play in? And we'll talk about various layout strategies. We'll talk about what gutter widths are, for example, or column intervals, or flow lines across multiple pages, and that sort of thing. We'll talk about computer-aided drafting, or CAD, or AutoCAD. We'll draw basic floor plans, elevations. Right? We won't get into sections so much. We'll talk about collaging over the top to make them look better, or sometimes worse, hopefully better. We're trying to make things look better, right? We'll talk about line weights. We'll talk about how do you lay out drawings. How do you use viewports to show various views on a particular sheet of paper, and how those play together. We'll talk about fonts. We'll talk about title blocks and that sort of thing. We'll get into 3D modeling and collage. A lot of this is done in SketchUp. We'll do basic views of a building. You'll do a project And then we'll do floor plans, sections, and elevations of that view. And we'll talk about how those things collage together against a backdrop. We'll do a perspective view, where we try to sit a particular building into a scene and make it match up with shadows and or grass, etc. This is a section view, for example. We'll talk about how do you make things transparent so you see through parts of your building into the background, etc. We'll do plans. How do you cut plans out of a 3D model? We'll work through collage. We'll put people in. We'll put birds in. We'll put trees, right? And we'll try to integrate our particular buildings into a scene. Right? Likewise, we'll talk about how do you change the way a scene looks to change the mood of a particular scene. Right? Are you trying to do a snowstorm, for example, or are you trying to do something that's a bright sunny day? Right? I think it's really entertaining to see what people pick as the people that are in these scenes. So I'll end with asking you, what will you create? And I think one of the exciting things about a class like this is, having taught it for 10 years or whatever, 9 years, I guess, lots of semesters, is to see how you guys bring something different. And if I went back and looked at what the 2007 class did compared to what you will do, it's amazing the evolution of how things have changed. And I look forward to seeing what you do. You guys bring a very different dynamic each semester, so my class last semester will be completely different than what you guys do. And it's really fun to see how that plays out. So we're going to move. We'll take a quick break, maybe 5 minutes or so. So I was fairly close to being on time at 9 o'clock. We'll reconvene at 9. You'll have your first lab exercise. We'll go through that. I'll demo it live so that you can see how to do what we're going to do. You'll make your post, and then you'll be able to get out of here a little bit early today because it is the first day after all. Okay? So about 5-minute break. Okay, so we're going to start back up. You all now have your Exercise 101 handout. Right? You get one of these each day for the lab portion. It is posted online as well. I don't keep copies so let's say you missed a day, right? If you ask me for a copy, I'll say go to the website because I don't keep the copies after the day that we do it. So quick bit of information about the website. The first day, for whatever reason, things always seem to run slow. It doesn't appear to be running slow. It doesn't appear to be crashing right now, but that happens on the first day. I don't know why. And then the rest of the time, it's always fine. But I'm going to walk through a bunch of stuff on the website just so you're familiar with the website and what it looks like and where the content is, etc. As we look at the home page here, we have a bunch of menus that will access a variety of information. As we scroll down here, you'll see the most recent student work posts. So as you post things, it'll show the most recent 4. If you want to see all of the student work that's been posted, you can click on the More Student Work, and you'll see a gallery of lots and lots of student work going back years in time. There's a link to go buy the book, so if you want to click on that. There's also a bunch of stuff from my Twitter feed that are mostly, I posted this lecture, I posted that lecture, etc. So across the top here, variety of information. Right here, you guys are in Digital Tools for Architects 135. So if you needed a copy of the syllabus, for example, which I just remembered I didn't update for this semester's, but I will do it today, I promise. You'll be able to click on that link, get a copy of the syllabus, or whatever else you might need. We also have the calendar feeds, which we'll talk through kind of at length. Under lectures here, again, you guys are looking for 135, and you'll see Spring 2016 is listed. That'll be your lecture page, which if I should have pre-opened these, or at least I hope I did. Yeah, there you go. It'll look like this. There'll be a link to lecture 101. As I do lecture 102, 103, 104, it'll show up on top. So they're reverse chronological. The most current is on top. And if you click on lecture 101, for example, it'll take you to a page. And this is always hard because it's a little slow because everybody's accessing it right now.
Mine doesn't work.
Okay, well, I told you it was not going to work the first day. We'll see if it loads up. I'm going to move on and keep talking, and we'll come back to it. Under tutorials, you'll see a link to all the various tutorials. There you go. Lecture 101 did show up. And so this will give you, currently, obviously, I don't have a recording yet, but the video will show up here at the top. It'll also give you links to the various lectures that I've done. And you see the links. These ones go back in time, 2015, 2014, 2013. So not that you'd want to watch me introduce the class for every year, but it's there if you want it. There's also lecture downloads. If you want to download a PDF of the lecture with all the slides and whatever. Again, course introduction, not the most exciting lecture. But down the road, you might want slides. And there's also a printable version that has 4 slides to a page, so it's shrunk down version, so you don't have to print as many pages. That's there as well. You do have to be logged in to see any of this stuff. It'll be hidden if you're not logged in. When we move on, the tutorial section, so Photoshop, for example, there's a bunch of Photoshop tutorials. I will refer to these in the exercises as we do work. I'll say go to this particular tutorial and it'll walk through. Some of the tutorials have videos that'll walk through exactly what I'm talking about. So if for some reason you missed it or you want to go back and view it, that's there. It'll also walk through. It'll give you little images that show you what I'm clicking on or what those various pieces look like. It'll also give you a printable version if you wanted to print something. They'll cross-link. If I refer to, say, this one I'm referring to 1.6, you can click on 1.6 and it'll take you to that one. So the tutorials are all there and available. As we move forward into the exercises, you guys again will be in the 135 class, spring 2016, and you'll get an exercise post, which again I pre-opened these so that we wouldn't have to wait for them to load. This is today's exercise 101. It's exactly the same as what you see on the paper. The only difference is the links are live, so if I refer to something, you can actually click on the link to go to a various page, and it'll walk you through. At the very bottom, there's a PDF of exercise 101. So like I said, if you missed class and you need a copy of the exercise, go to the website, click on it, print it, make yourself your own copy. Right? I've debated for a long time, should I go completely paperless or not? Every semester I ask the student, should I go paperless or not? Last semester said no, so we're going with paper. Right? If you guys decide I can go paperless, maybe I'll try it. But for right now, we're going with paper. So you'll get paper copies, but all of this is available here as well. When we move on to the assignments, it's essentially the same thing. There are no assignments yet, so there's nothing for you to click on. Resources are a variety of things that we'll get to later on in the semester that may or may not be useful for you, and we'll create some of these. Some of these are for the other class. Obviously, V-Ray materials, for example, aren't really relevant for this class, but they're there for the future. The student work section here is to go back and see student work that people have posted in particular categories. So for example, we could go to student work, digital tools for designers. We could go to exercises, and we could look at posts that people have made for exercise 101. Right? These are things that people did last semester or whatever, because you guys haven't posted yet. I'll go ahead and try to load that. I don't know that it'll actually work, but we can come back and see what people have posted for 101. Maybe. Here we go. So these are posts that people have made in that particular category. When you start to make your posts today, they'll show up here. Okay, so if you want to look at a particular exercise or a particular assignment, you'll see where that shows up. Okay, so if you click on this last link for login, you'll be presented with this screen, okay, which will ask you for your username and your password. You guys don't have a username and a password yet unless you've taken one of my classes before, so you're going to click on this link at the bottom for register. Now recognize all 30 of you are going to click on it right now, and it's probably going to crash on half of you because there's so many of you trying to do it at once. Right? Believe it or not, I have a really high-end server that I pay for to run this, but it's just hard when I have so many exactly at the same moment. So be patient if it doesn't work. When you get here and you get to the register for this site, you're going to pick a username. You're going to type in an email. It does not have to be your school email, your 4CD or whatever that email is. It can be whatever one you actually use, which is what I would encourage you to do. Under your username, please pick something related to your name. Right? If you pick, you know, Sexy Hot Man 123, I won't know who that is. I mean, there's so many of you out there, I just wouldn't be able to pick. So you please, like, something related to your name. right? I have to be able to figure out who you are. I look up your work. I have to grade your work, right? Be reasonably professional about it, okay? So that would be under username. I love usernames that are like first name, period, last name, right? Those are nice. Or first initial, last name, something in that vein would be great, okay? And then under the invitation code, it's DTFA student, right, in all capitals. It's written on both sides of the board. And you'll type that one in. So DTFA student, like that. And that will allow you to register, right? When you click on register, it will send an email to your email account. So whatever address you put in here, it will send an email to that address. It may show up in your spam folder in that address. Sometimes Gmail likes to put it in the spam folder instead. So make sure you check the spam folder as well. That email will contain a temporary password that will let you go back to the site, log in, and then I'll show you how to change a password. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time, and then we'll continue. OK, so we appear that most of you have been able to get in and have been able to do the password resets and whatever. WordPress gives you a really complicated password. When you try to reset your password, you may have discovered this already. If you highlight the complicated one, you can type in a simple one, and then you check the box for yes, let me use a simple one, right? I will talk at length in a couple lectures about passwords and why you really should use a complicated one. But for right now, use whatever you can remember, and that's perfectly fine. OK, so for the second part of today's exercise, I'm going to ask you guys to find an architectural or a design-related website, whatever kind of is interesting to you. Doesn't matter what it is. And we're going to make a link to this website. We're going to write a little summary of a particular article that's on it, right, so that you get familiar. And we're going to post a picture relating to that website. So I'm going to go ahead and do that live. It will take you probably longer than it will take me, but I at least want to kind of go through the process so that you see it. I'm going to look at the Arc Daily site as an easier way of finding something that might be interesting. And I'll pick something, again, something that looks kind of unique. Right? So there's an example of something. This might be interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this text. So I'll right-click to copy. And I'm going to go back to the Digital Tools site. And you guys have probably seen this before. This is your dashboard. If you're not on the dashboard page, you'll also see that the top bar turns black when you're logged in. Right? From either the top bar, you can go to New Post, or from your dashboard on the left side here, you can go to Posts, Add New. Doesn't matter. It's the same process. Right? When you click on that new post, it will take you to basically like a regular text editor program, right? So you're used to working in Word. The text editor here is essentially the same. What you see is what you get, right? So if you type something and you make it bold, it'll show up bold. If you type something and make it underlined, it'll show up underlined. And so as we be patient while this happens, I'll then walk you through what this looks like. I would encourage you, we're going to make a link to the particular page that you find interesting. So leave that open in a tab and then work on the new post in a different tab. Obviously, I have a bunch of tabs open. Those were all from me showing you various pieces of the website. So I can get rid of those for right now. Oh, I should probably make a note in this lab. I'm not particularly worried about foods and drinks, but don't tell anybody that I told you that because I don't want to get in trouble. If you need to go get coffee or whatever because it is a first thing in the morning class, I completely understand. It's not a problem. But make it with a lid, right, so that hopefully if you spill it, it doesn't completely saturate everything. Likewise, if you want to eat, try not to eat in the lab. Just walk outside and eat on the benches outside. Not a problem. This class doesn't span lunch, so it's not as big of a deal as my second class, which spans right in the middle of lunch. Hard for people. But since this is morning, chances are you guys are going to have coffee, certainly as the semester goes on and your sleep declines. Right? The first day is great because you had plenty of sleep. Right? But if you have coffee or whatever, just make sure it has a lid. If you have a water bottle, have a lid. Right? That sort of thing. OK, so this is the new post page. And so I'm writing about this apartment building. Right? And so I'm going to go ahead and make the post title here. And so I just copied and pasted it. Okay? And I want to make a link to the site. So down here is your primary text editor. You'll notice that it will say visual. The little visual tab is highlighted. That means that whatever we type in here is what you see. So for example, I could say this is an apartment building, or something like that, right? If I spent a little bit more time reading this, I could probably learn a little bit more about this particular building and what it looks like. One of the reasons that I like ArchDaily as a site in general is because they tend to include really nice photographs, but also floor plans and drawings, which is helpful just to kind of get used to as you're learning through your basic stages of architecture. So there we've got a first floor, a second floor. We've got some really nice pictures. There you go. Lots of floors. It tells you where it is. Lots and lots of information. Okay, so I want to be able to put a link to this page. So I'm going to take the overall link up here, and again, I'll right-click on it and say copy. And then I'll go back to my post, and we'll make a hit return. So I go down, and I'm going to say this is a link to the ArchDaily website page. Right? And so I did that just kind of as text. I can come up here, see the B for bold. I can make it bold, for example. There's no right and wrong way to do this. I'm just trying to show you some of the stuff that's available to you. Right? And I'm going to paste the link underneath. So if I press Control V, I'll get the link text here. Maybe I want that text to have a little bullet point. I can click on the little bullet point. It shows up as a bullet point. Right now, this isn't actually a link. It's just the text. So I'm going to click on this little chain that represents the link. And it'll bring up this little pop-up. And I'm going to change the URL to be the link. And so I'll say Add Link. Now you see that it shows up as this blue. So if I were to click on it, it would take me to the actual website. Okay? So it would be nice if I put a little bit more summary than this is an apartment building. But I'm not going to make you sit here while I type a summary. Right? You spend a little bit of time, get familiar with it. Again, this is very much about getting familiar. Right? The next thing that I'd really like is I'd like an image to go with my post. So let's say I like this image. I can right-click. Let me see. Let me come down here and look at the actual images. There we go. So I click to make the image big, and I'm going to go ahead and click Save Image As. And I'll save it to the desktop for right now. I'll click Save, and it'll show up right there. And I'll come back to my post. And I'm going to scroll all the way to the very bottom on the right, and you'll see something called Featured Image right down here. I'll click on Set Featured Image. And again, if you get a little bit lost in this, this is the first time you've posted, not a big deal. I'll sit there and walk you through it. You will get so good at this, it will just happen in your sleep. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on this Upload Files button. I'll click on Select Files, and this is exactly how you'll post your actual work long term. And once again, I'll look at my desktop. There's the image. I'll click Open. We'll give it a second to upload to the site. And once it's done with this little bar, I'll see a preview of the image here. And the Set Featured Image button right here at the bottom will turn blue. There we go. So I'll go ahead and it's checked. And I'll go ahead and say Set Featured Image. And if we give it just a second, the image will actually show up here. There it is. So we'll see a little featured image. So now I'm almost there. I'm going to scroll back up to the top. And I'm going to look for this box called Categories. And I'm going to scroll in the box of Categories. And I'm going to come to where it says Digital Tools for Designers. We're in that class, so I'll check that box. This isn't an assignment. This is an exercise. So I'll check the exercises, Archi 135. And this is exercise 101. And what these categories do when I check these boxes is it puts your work in the gallery of work for the assignment. So you saw where I went to student work, and then I went down and I said, show me exercise 101. Right? By checking these boxes, your work will be included in the exercise 101 section. So once I'm done with that, right, I have my image, I have my little summary, I have a link to the article. I'm going to go ahead and click on Publish, right, which is right here. And when I publish it, you'll see it says Publish Immediately, and it will then show up on the home page. And so once it's done here, almost done. All right, there you go. So it published. You'll see post published. I can click on view post to see my actual post, which I will do in a new tab so you can see it in a second. You'll also see that under publish, it'll say published on January 25th at 9:30. Right? So there's my timestamp. I know it's been turned in correctly. All right? And if I click on the view post, we're going to see a preview of what my post looks like, or an actual view of what my post looks like. I can also go to the main website, and it will then show up as one of the list, the 4 student works. So there it is. This is my actual page. Right? So we see the image, we see when I posted it. There's a link. If I were to click on it, it would take me to the link. Okay? So this is my first post for this class. You will all do the same thing. You'll have your first post. Okay? If you want, you posted something, you say, oh, I made a spelling error or something like that, and you wanted to correct it, you can always come back and click on Edit Post. It will take you back to the editor. You can edit it. Right? Let's say you posted something that wasn't quite finished, and you went back and finished it some more. Go ahead and go back to edit, change your post. Okay? On the main website here, there's my post. Right? Shows up again in reverse chronological order. So as you go through, it's only going to show 4, right, on the home page. But if you clicked on more student work, it would show up there. So as each of you post it, you'll see it in the list, the chronological list or the reverse chronological list of what happens and what posts were made today. Okay? So the key is just to make sure that you categorized it correctly, right? And then we're going to make a little summary. I can see that you did it. If you want to put in the title, maybe I'll go back to editing it, and maybe I'll say this is exercise, if I can type, 101. Right? Maybe I'll take this title and put it down here, like that. And maybe I'll make this bold, or maybe I'll make it, something like that. And let's get rid of this. Exercise 101, and then I can click Update. So you see how you can make corrections and changes as you go forward. Okay? So your task today, and I will come around and I'll help you if you run into any trouble, is to create this first post with this little summary. After you've done that, you're free to go for today. I ask that you go get your flash drive sometime in the next 2 days, or at least have it ordered, so that when you come into class on Wednesday, we'll actually be able to start working with your flash drive, and you'll be able to save stuff on your flash drive. Okay? Are there any questions? Now, I should mention that if I'm going through one of these explanations and you get lost, or you need me to back up and repeat a step, please raise your hand and tell me, go back and say that again, right? Computers are that way. Stuff sometimes works really easy and you miss something and you're stuck. Tell me, because chances are one of the other 30 of you will be stuck too, right? So don't be afraid to stop me midstream so that you can get a little bit more feedback. Okay?